Commander Jack Carter stood on the observation deck of the lunar base, his eyes tracing the craggy surface of the moon beneath him. The vast, gray expanse stretched endlessly in all directions, a constant reminder of the silence and isolation that came with space exploration. Earth, his home, was just a distant blue speck on the horizon. It was a beautiful sight, but also a sobering one. This was supposed to be just another mission, routine like so many others before it. Earth's lunar colony had been tasked with conducting geological surveys, gathering seismic data, and studying the moon's ancient surface. Jack had led countless missions like this. There was nothing extraordinary about it, just routine. But then something changed. "Commander, you need to see this." Sergeant Mia Thompson's voice broke through his thoughts. She sounded tense, not her usual calm self. Jack turned and walked briskly to the communications console. "What's going on, Mia?" Mia, a seasoned technician and member of the team, was staring at the screen, her face pale. "We've picked up something unusual, a signal. We've run diagnostics, but it doesn't match anything in our records. It's not from Earth, Jack." Jack's pulse quickened. A signal from somewhere else. In all his years of space exploration, he'd never expected anything like this, especially not on the moon, Earth's own satellite. His voice lowered as he stepped closer to the screen. "What kind of signal?" "It's like a pattern, but not a natural one," Mia said, her eyes scanning the data. "It's structured, intelligent, almost like a message. We traced it to a location deep beneath the surface, an area we've been surveying for the last 2 weeks." Jack frowned, his mind racing. "How deep are we talking?" Mia hesitated for a moment before responding. "About 200 meters underground." Jack's stomach dropped. They hadn't been expecting to find anything buried that deep. The moon's surface was well studied. There were no signs of any hidden structures, at least, nothing that had been recorded. "Is it possible we've just detected a natural phenomenon?" Jack asked, trying to calm himself. "No, sir, I've cross-checked every possibility. This isn't natural, it's artificial," Mia answered, her voice trembling slightly. Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself. "Okay, get the team ready. We're going down there." The team, a group of highly trained astronauts and scientists, was already preparing for the descent into the dark depths of the moon's surface. Jack knew the risks. Going deeper than ever before into unknown territory, this was no longer a routine mission. But there was no turning back now. Something was out there. Something that had been hidden beneath the lunar surface for who knew how long. As Jack descended into the depths of the moon's crust, the air in the elevator shaft grew colder. The crew was silent, focused, as the ground shook faintly beneath their feet. The lunar base above them seemed so distant now. Only the faint hum of the equipment and the clinking of their boots against the metal floor broke the stillness. "We've reached the coordinates," Mia's voice came over the comms. "We're about 20 meters from the signal's origin point. It's just up ahead." The tension in Jack's chest tightened. The signal had been growing stronger, more consistent the closer they got. Now, as they stood at the entrance of a long, dark passageway, the air felt thicker, like a heavy weight was pressing down on them. It wasn't just the silence that unnerved him. It was the knowledge that something or someone had been hiding down here for centuries, maybe even longer. "Stay sharp," Jack said, his voice quiet but commanding. "We don't know what we're dealing with." With each step forward, the team moved cautiously through the narrow corridor. The walls were smooth and metallic, unlike anything they had encountered in the moon's natural geology. The walls were etched with symbols, patterns that none of them recognized, and that made the hairs on the back of Jack's neck stand up. The closer they got to the source of the signal, the more overwhelming it became. There was a low hum, almost like a heartbeat, emanating from the walls. "Commander, we found something," Mia called out, her voice echoing down the corridor. Jack hurried over to her. The team was gathered around what appeared to be a large door, a massive, round, metallic hatch built into the rock. It was unlike any technology they had seen before. The door seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. On the surface of the door were more symbols, glowing softly in the dim light of their torches. Jack approached it cautiously, heart pounding. "What is this?" he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "I don't know, but it looks like it's meant to open," Mia said, her eyes wide with awe. "Can you get it open?" Jack asked. Mia examined the hatch closely, running her fingers over the symbols. "I'll try." The team held their breath as Mia began typing into the interface embedded in the door. There was a low, metallic hum as the hatch slowly began to open, the groan of old machinery reverberating through the walls. And then, as the door fully opened, they saw it. Inside the chamber was a vast alien ship, huge, dark, and organic in shape, unlike any human technology. It seemed to breathe, its surface pulsing with a strange, rhythmic glow. The hum they had been hearing came from it. This wasn't just a ship, it was alive. Jack stood frozen, staring at the massive structure before him. Nothing in his training or his wildest dreams had prepared him for this. They had found it, an alien ship, and now nothing would ever be the same again. The door creaked open, revealing the alien ship in all its eerie grandeur. Jack Carter stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. The walls of the chamber shimmered with a soft, almost hypnotic light, casting strange shadows across the ship's massive, organic-looking surface. It didn't feel like they were inside a structure. It felt like they were inside something alive. The ship seemed to pulse, as if it were breathing, and the hum they had been hearing grew louder, vibrating in their chests, filling the air. It was a strange, unsettling sound, like something ancient awakening from a long-forgotten slumber. Jack's breath hitched. This wasn't just technology. This was something else, something that blurred the lines between life and machine. "Is this real?" Mia whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum. Her hands trembled as she reached out, barely touching the surface of the ship, as if afraid that it might react to her touch. "I don't know," Jack said, his voice low and filled with awe. "But we're going to find out." Mia's fingers traced the sleek, metallic surface, and suddenly there was a soft glow beneath her touch. The ship reacted as though it had sensed her presence. The pulsating lights along its body flickered, then brightened, casting an eerie blue hue across the room. A deep, low rumble sounded from within the ship, reverberating through the walls and floor. The ground seemed to shift, and the ship's walls creaked as if stretching and groaning. "Commander, I think it's responding to us," Mia said, stepping back slightly. "This is unlike anything we've seen." Jack's mind raced. What had they stumbled upon? The ship clearly wasn't of human design, but it seemed too advanced to be just an ancient relic. There was something unsettlingly alive about it, almost as if it were waiting for them, or worse, watching them. "Get the rest of the team in here," Jack ordered. "We need to see what we're dealing with." The rest of the crew entered cautiously, their eyes wide in disbelief. They had all seen the readings, the seismic disturbances, but no one had imagined they would find something like this, something that seemed to defy everything they knew about science and engineering. The ship was too perfect, too intricate, and yet it was alien in every sense of the word. As the team gathered around, Jack stepped forward again, closer to the heart of the ship. He was drawn to it, an almost magnetic pull urging him on. His heart pounded louder in his chest as he reached out, placing his hand flat against the surface. The hum grew stronger, vibrating through him. For a moment, the air seemed to still. Suddenly, with a sound like a sigh, the ship began to open. A section of the wall slid back, revealing a darkened corridor within. Jack's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just a ship, it was a gateway, a passage into something unknown. A feeling of dread settled in his stomach, but he refused to back away. They had come this far. "We're going in," Jack said firmly, his voice a command. "Everyone stay alert. We don't know what's waiting inside." Mia looked at him, her face pale but determined. "Do you think it's safe?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "No," Jack admitted, "but we don't have a choice." With weapons drawn and their breaths held, they stepped into the dark corridor. It was impossibly still, the air thick and cold as they moved deeper inside the ship. The walls were lined with strange, glowing symbols, alien writing that twisted and shifted as they walked past. Jack's mind tried to make sense of it, but it was like nothing he had ever seen before. This wasn't just technology. It was something far beyond humanity's understanding. After what felt like an eternity of walking in the eerie silence, they reached a large, circular room. The walls of the chamber were covered in more of the glowing symbols, and in the center of the room was a pedestal holding a strange object. It pulsed with light, casting an unsettling glow throughout the room. "This is it," Jack said quietly. "Whatever this is, it's the heart of the ship." He approached the pedestal slowly, his eyes never leaving the object. It was spherical, shimmering with energy as though it were alive. As he reached out to touch it, the entire room seemed to react. The ground trembled beneath their feet and the symbols on the walls flashed brighter. A deep rumble echoed through the ship, and suddenly the object began to glow even more intensely. The ship's hum became louder, almost deafening. "Get back!" Jack shouted as the light from the object grew, blinding in its intensity. He tried to pull Mia and the others away, but before they could react, the room was filled with a blinding flash. A shockwave of energy shot outward, knocking them all off their feet. Jack's head spun, his vision blurry as the flash of light dissipated. The room had fallen silent again, but the air felt different. The ship had changed. The very atmosphere felt charged, like something deep within the ship had just awakened. As Jack struggled to stand, the symbols on the walls stopped glowing and a voice, low and resonant, echoed through the chamber, vibrating in his bones. "You have awakened us. You are not like them." Jack froze. The voice wasn't coming from anywhere, but it was all around him. It spoke directly into his mind. Who are you?" Jack managed to ask, his voice shaking. A pause, and then the voice spoke again, clearer this time. "We are the architects, the creators, and you are the chosen, the answer to our question." The hum in the ship grew stronger, the walls around them trembling as if the ship was alive, preparing to speak again. But before Jack could react, the ship's walls began to close, blocking their exit. "We're trapped," Mia whispered, panic creeping into her voice. "No," Jack said, eyes narrowing. "We're not trapped. We're here because it wants us here, and I intend to find out why." The ship was alive. Jack Carter could feel it now, the energy in the air, the weight of something ancient and powerful that hummed through his very bones. The voice, the one that had spoken directly into his mind, had left him with more questions than answers. Who were the architects? What did they mean by the chosen? And most importantly, why had they brought humanity here? He could still hear the faint rumble echoing through the ship's walls, the subtle vibrations beneath his feet. The deeper they ventured into this alien vessel, the more it felt like a living, breathing entity. The smooth walls seemed to shift with every step, as though the ship itself was aware of their presence. "We need to move," Jack said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. He turned to his crew, still gathered around the pedestal, their faces a mix of awe and fear. "Whatever this is, we need to understand it before it understands us." Mia Thompson was the first to snap out of her daze. "But Jack, what does it want from us? Why are we even here?" "I don't know," Jack replied, "but we're not leaving without answers." They quickly moved through the ship's winding corridors, the ship's pulse growing stronger with each step. It was like the walls themselves were breathing, pushing them forward. Jack's mind raced as they pressed on. The message had been clear: you are not like them. What did that mean? The architects, were they the creators of the ship, or something more? The crew walked in tense silence, each person lost in their own thoughts, trying to process the reality of what they were facing. The chamber they entered next was even more imposing than the last, larger, with a massive dark opening at its center. The air was thick with a hum that vibrated in Jack's chest. In the center of the room was an enormous structure, unlike anything they had ever seen. It resembled a pulsing core of energy, suspended within a circular metallic cage. "This is it," Jack muttered to himself as they approached. "This is what the voice was talking about." Mia stepped forward cautiously, her hand hovering near the glowing core. The light from it cast strange shadows across the walls. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "What is this thing?" Jack didn't have an answer. The core seemed to beckon them, its energy almost palpable, and yet it terrified him. Was this what the architects wanted them to find? Suddenly, the voice returned, booming through the chamber with a force that shook them to their core. "You have arrived. You are the chosen, the key to the next evolution." Jack's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. "What do you want from us?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the oppressive silence. The core flared brighter and the voice responded, "We are the architects, creators of the first seed. This is where all life began. We have watched, waited, and now you have found us. Humanity holds the key to our survival." The words were overwhelming. Jack could barely process what he was hearing. The first seed. The architects were creators of life, and humanity. They held the key. "What do you mean we hold the key?" Mia asked, her voice shaking. "The first seed," the voice intoned, "was planted eons ago, a seed of life that spread across the galaxy. It was meant to create balance, but it faltered, consumed by chaos. Now we seek the one who can bring it back to life. The chosen have arrived." Jack stepped forward, his mind racing. "You said the first seed faltered. What happened to it?" "It was corrupted," the voice replied, "by those who could not understand it, by those who desired to control it. Now the chaos has spread. You must fix it. You must be the ones to restore balance." Jack's pulse quickened. "How? What do we need to do?" The ship hummed louder, almost as if it were preparing for something. The core at the center of the room pulsed brighter, and the symbols along the walls began to glow in unison. "You will face the darkness that corrupted the seed. You must find the one who controls it and destroy it. Only then can the seed be reborn." Jack's mind spun. The one who controls it, who is that? Where do we even start? The voice fell silent for a moment. Then slowly it spoke again. "Follow the path, you will know the way. You have already begun the journey. You have awakened us." A cold, unnerving silence followed the last words. The ship seemed to settle, its hum fading to a low, steady pulse. Jack's breath was shallow, his mind still reeling from everything they had just learned. The architects had created life, and now it was up to humanity to fix what had gone wrong. But where did they begin? Who was the one they needed to find? Jack turned to his team, all of them just as lost as he was. "We have no choice but to follow this path. The galaxy is counting on us. Earth is counting on us." The silence around them deepened. Mia's voice trembled as she asked, "What if we can't do it? What if we fail?" "We won't fail," Jack said, his voice stronger now. "We've made it this far, and whatever happens, we're not going to stop. Humanity doesn't know the word failure. We fight until the end." He glanced back at the glowing core, determination rising in his chest. The architects had awakened them for a reason. Humanity was the answer. Now they had to prove it. As the ship shifted, revealing the next path forward, Jack led his team into the unknown, where answers awaited, and the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, both literal and figurative. Jack Carter's heart pounded as he led his team deeper into the heart of the alien ship. They had heard the voice, felt its power, but the weight of their mission now seemed almost unbearable. They were humanity's last hope. The architects had chosen them, and now the responsibility lay squarely on their shoulders. The ship around them pulsed with energy, the walls shifting, glowing, and hums of ancient machinery filled the air. It was a world of wonders and dangers, far beyond anything they had imagined. The journey had already taken a toll on them physically and emotionally, and Jack could see it on their faces. Fear, doubt, wonder, they were all feeling it. Mia Thompson, the ever-reliable technician, was the first to speak, breaking the silence that had fallen over them as they moved through the twisting corridors. "What if we can't do it, Jack? What if we're not strong enough?" Jack turned to her, his expression grim but steady. "We don't have a choice. We've come this far, Mia. Earth's fate is in our hands. We've made it through worse. We'll make it through this too." Mia nodded, but Jack could see the worry still etched across her face. She was a soldier, but even she couldn't shake the enormity of the task ahead. They all had their doubts, but none of them voiced them aloud. They couldn't afford to. The further they went, the more oppressive the ship's atmosphere became. It felt like they were entering a living creature. Its walls, its hum, everything about it made it feel as though the ship was alive and watching them. Each step they took seemed to echo in the vast emptiness, like their presence was being noted, weighed, and measured. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached a large, open chamber. At the center stood a towering structure, dark and imposing, covered in glowing symbols similar to those they had seen earlier. It was the heart of the ship, undeniably ancient and powerful, the center of the first seed. "That's it, isn't it?" Lieutenant Dan Foster asked, his voice tight with awe. "That's where we need to be." Jack nodded, his breath catching in his chest. "This is it. The architects said we had to face the darkness. We've come this far, now we have to finish it." They slowly approached the center, where a swirling vortex of energy hovered in midair. It felt wrong, like they were walking straight into the belly of a beast. But they didn't stop. There was no turning back. The ship seemed to pulse with life, and Jack could hear the faint voice in his mind again. "You have reached the heart," it said. "The seed waits. Face the one who controls it. Only then can the balance be restored." Jack exchanged looks with his team, each of them understanding the gravity of the situation. They were here to face an unknown enemy, someone, or something, who had corrupted the seed. And Jack had no idea who or what they would find. All he knew was that humanity had no choice but to keep moving forward. "Are we ready for this?" Mia whispered. Jack's eyes were fixed on the swirling energy ahead. "We don't have a choice." Without another word, they stepped forward into the vortex. It felt as though they were being sucked into the very fabric of the ship. The world around them bent and twisted, and for a brief moment, Jack felt like they were falling into nothingness. The sensation was disorienting, but before he could even process it, they landed hard on a cold, metallic surface. The room around them was different now, vast, dark, and filled with shadows. At the far end stood a figure, cloaked in black and shimmering with an eerie light. The figure's face was hidden, its presence menacing, but its voice echoed clearly in the darkness. "You have come," it said, its voice low and filled with a strange, almost mocking tone. "The chosen, the ones who think they can undo what was done." Jack's pulse quickened. This was the one who controlled the seed. His team stood behind him, weapons raised, but Jack held up his hand, signaling them to stand down. He stepped forward, trying to appear calm even as his mind raced. "You've corrupted the seed," Jack said, his voice steady. "We're here to stop you, to restore balance." The figure laughed, a deep, hollow sound that reverberated through the chamber. "Balance?" it scoffed. "You don't understand, do you? The seed was never meant for balance. It was meant for control, to create something stronger, more perfect. But you humans always ruin everything you touch." Jack's stomach churned. "You're wrong. Humanity fights for survival, for a better future. We're not here to control anything, we're here to fix the mess you've made." The figure stepped forward, its form shimmering as it grew more solid. It raised a hand, and the room filled with a burst of energy, forcing Jack and his team back. "No," the figure growled. "You can't undo what has already been done. The darkness will consume everything, even you." Jack stumbled but quickly regained his footing. He looked at his team, their faces grim but determined. They had to stop this. "Whatever you are, we won't let you win," Jack shouted, his voice full of conviction. The figure raised its hand again, but before it could strike, Mia fired. A brilliant blast of energy hit the figure, but it did nothing to stop it. The figure laughed again, this time colder, more menacing. "You are too late," it said, its voice now a whisper. "The darkness has already taken root, and you are the final mistake." But Jack wasn't finished. "We're not done yet," he muttered, as he prepared for the fight of his life. The air in the chamber felt heavier now, thick with tension and the growing hum of the energy field surrounding the dark figure. Jack Carter's breath came in shallow gasps as the mysterious being stood before him, its presence overwhelming, like an inescapable force. His team was behind him, ready to fight, but Jack knew they were in for something far worse than they could have imagined. The figure, whatever it was, had already proven that it wasn't ordinary. The power it radiated was almost suffocating, as if it could crush them with a thought. But Jack wasn't going to back down. Not now. "Why are you doing this?" Mia Thompson's voice rang out, shaking with anger and fear. She was standing beside Jack, her eyes fixed on the figure. "What do you want? You're not just an enemy, you're the enemy. You've corrupted everything." The figure smiled, an eerie, twisted expression that sent chills down Jack's spine. "You still don't understand. The seed was never meant for balance or peace. It was a tool for power, for control. The galaxy needs a force strong enough to bend it to its will, and we will see it done." Jack stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. "The galaxy doesn't need you. It needs hope. It needs a future." He glanced at Mia and the rest of the crew, their faces a mix of determination and fear. "We don't need to control the seed. We need to heal it." The figure's laugh filled the room, cold and mocking. "You think you can undo what I've done? You think your fragile species can stop this? You are nothing compared to the power we've awakened." Jack felt a surge of anger, but he pushed it down. Anger wouldn't help. They needed strategy, and they needed to be smart. "I don't know what you are," Jack said, his voice steady. "But I know one thing for sure, we will stop you." Without warning, the figure raised a hand, sending a wave of energy surging toward them. It was as if the entire chamber exploded into motion. The ground trembled, and a powerful shockwave of force hit them, knocking them back with crushing force. Jack was thrown to the ground, pain shooting through his chest. His vision blurred as he tried to push himself up, but everything spun around him. "Mia," Jack gasped, reaching for his weapon. Mia was already on her feet, and though she was shaken, her eyes burned with determination. "We can't let it win, Jack," she shouted over the roar of the energy field. "We need to focus on the seed. That's what it wants. That's where it's drawing its power." Jack nodded, struggling to steady himself. They had no choice. They couldn't fight this being head-on. They had to take down the source of its power, the seed itself. "Everyone focus," Jack shouted to his crew. "We stop the seed, we stop it." The figure, sensing their intentions, bellowed in rage. It slammed its fists into the air, and another shockwave erupted from the core. The walls of the chamber vibrated as cracks appeared in the dark stone. Jack could see the swirling energy growing stronger, more unstable. The seed was reaching its peak, and they had only moments before it was too late. "Now," Jack yelled, charging toward the pedestal where the seed pulsed with a dangerous, blinding light. His team followed, despite the chaos around them, their resolve hardening with each step. As they reached the pedestal, the figure screamed in fury, its form becoming a blur as it surged toward them. The room's temperature dropped and the walls seemed to close in on them. But Jack didn't stop. He knew they didn't have much time. "Mia now," Jack called. Mia quickly began typing commands into the console embedded in the pedestal. The symbols glowed brighter, and the entire chamber seemed to breathe with the ship. The seed's pulse was erratic now, its energy wildly fluctuating as Mia worked. Come on," Mia muttered, her fingers flying over the console. Suddenly, the figure lunged toward them, its hands crackling with energy. It reached out, aiming to strike, but Jack threw himself into its path, slamming into the figure with every ounce of strength he had left. The force of the collision sent them both crashing to the ground, but Jack gritted his teeth and forced himself to stand. "We're almost there," Mia shouted from behind him, her voice full of desperation. With a roar of fury, the figure tried to rise, but Jack was already moving again. He didn't hesitate. His mind raced with thoughts of Earth, of the people depending on them, of the future they had to protect. He reached for his weapon, his fingers trembling, and fired directly at the dark figure. The blast hit the figure squarely in the chest, and the alien being staggered back, its glowing eyes flickering. The energy around it began to flicker and falter, like a candle's flame in the wind. "Do it," Jack yelled to Mia. Mia slammed a final key, and the pedestal hummed louder than ever. Suddenly, the entire chamber lit up with a blinding flash. The seed's energy surged outward, and for a moment everything went white. When the light finally faded, the figure was gone. The chamber was silent. Jack staggered to his feet, his heart racing as he looked around. The seed, now pulsing softly, was no longer a threat. The dark presence that had haunted them was gone, leaving only the quiet hum of the ship. "We did it," Mia whispered, her voice full of awe. Jack nodded, feeling a rush of relief and exhaustion. "We did." For a moment, they stood in the silence of the chamber, staring at the seed. It was no longer a weapon of destruction. It was simply a part of the ship, no longer corrupted by the darkness that had once controlled it. Humanity had won. They had faced the impossible, and they had come out on top. But Jack knew this victory was only the beginning. They had saved the galaxy, but now they had to prove they could protect it. And he was ready, they all were. The chamber was quiet now. The battle that had raged between the humans and the alien force was over, but its aftermath weighed heavily on Jack Carter's shoulders. The seed, now restored and no longer a threat, pulsed gently in the center of the room. The oppressive energy that had filled the ship had finally subsided. The darkness, which had nearly consumed them all, was gone. Yet the silence felt too loud. Jack stood in the center of the room, his hands still shaking from the battle, his body bruised and battered. He wasn't sure if it was exhaustion or relief, but his heart was heavy. He looked around at the crew, each of them equally exhausted but alive. Mia, Dan, and the rest of the team had fought alongside him, and together they had pulled through. "Is it over?" Mia asked, her voice soft, almost afraid to break the quiet. Jack nodded, though a part of him felt uncertain. "For now, we've stopped the seed from falling into the wrong hands, but there's still more to do." Mia stepped forward, her eyes scanning the room. "But we did it. The architects, they wanted us to stop it. We did what they asked." "Yeah, we did," Jack agreed. He walked over to the pedestal where the seed rested, its faint glow a reminder of how close they had come to losing everything. "But we don't know what this is. We don't know what the seed will mean for us. We've only just started to understand the power we've unleashed." His words hung in the air as his team gathered around him. Everyone was still processing everything they had just witnessed. The aliens, the seed, the dark figure that had tried to control it all. "Commander," Sergeant Foster said, his voice low, "what happens now?" Jack sighed, glancing at each member of his crew. They had risked their lives for this mission, but they weren't finished yet. "We have to report back. Earth needs to know what we found. We need to prepare because what we uncovered, it's bigger than anything we could have imagined." As Jack spoke, the reality of their situation hit him again. The architects had warned them that the galaxy was full of dangers, corruption, chaos, and the hunger for power. They'd come so close to losing the seed. If that dark force had won, everything would have been different. Worse. Jack turned back to the seed, wondering if they were truly ready for the consequences of their victory. If the galaxy knew about what was inside this ship, would they understand the power it held? Or would they come for it, just like the enemy had? "We'll need to find out what this means for humanity," Jack said. "We have to figure out what the seed is, what it can do, and how it affects the balance of power in the galaxy." "We'll be ready, sir," Mia said, her voice stronger now. "We won't let anyone take what we fought for." Jack met her gaze and nodded. The battle was over, but the war was. The galaxy had just opened up to humanity in a way they hadn't anticipated, and the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, unknown forces, hidden dangers, and possibly enemies who would try to steal the seed for themselves. "We need to contact Earth," Jack said, his voice steady. "This message has to get to them. We need to prepare the fleet, and we need to make sure the galaxy knows that humanity isn't just here to survive, we're here to fight for our future." The team quickly began working, preparing their equipment to send a signal back to Earth. As they worked, Jack took a moment to stand still, watching the flickering light from the seed. His thoughts raced, his mind trying to process the magnitude of their discovery. The ship groaned slightly, the walls shifting as though responding to their actions. Jack could feel the ship vibrating under his feet. "Commander," Foster called, "we've got a transmission coming through. It's from Earth." Jack's heart leapt into his throat. It had only been a few hours since the battle ended, but it felt like a lifetime. He quickly moved to the communications console, his crew gathering around him. The screen flickered, and the face of General Haynes, a high-ranking officer in the Earth Defense Coalition, appeared. His expression was grim but relieved. "Commander Carter," Haynes began, "we've received your signal. We were tracking your mission, but we didn't know what to expect. We knew you were in dangerous territory, but we didn't know how bad it had gotten." Jack's gaze hardened. "General, Earth has a lot to prepare for. The seed, what we found on the moon, it's real. And it's not just a tool, it's a power we can barely comprehend. The architects warned us, but we don't know who else is watching." Haynes' face grew serious. "What do you mean, who else is watching?" Jack took a breath. "The galaxy is full of hidden threats. The seed was the key to something ancient, and it's not the only thing out there. If we don't act, if we don't get ahead of this, humanity could become a target." "We'll need to act quickly," Haynes said, his voice hardening. "We'll prepare the fleet. We'll make sure you have backup, but you need to get back to Earth. Whatever you've uncovered, it's bigger than we thought." Jack nodded. "We're coming back now, but we need time to understand what we found. We need a plan." "Understood," Haynes said, his face softening just a little. "Good work, Carter. The galaxy might be bigger than we thought, but so are we." The screen went black and Jack exhaled, looking around at his crew. Their faces reflected the same mixture of exhaustion and determination. They had done the impossible, and now the real work was about to begin. "Let's get back to Earth," Jack said. "We've got a galaxy to protect." And with that, they turned back toward the ship, ready to face whatever the future held, knowing that the fight was just beginning. The journey back to Earth was a quiet one. The hum of the Endurance's engines was a familiar sound, but today it felt distant. Jack Carter sat alone in the command chair, staring out at the endless expanse of space before him. His mind was still racing, still processing everything they had uncovered on the moon, the seed, the architects, the dark forces that had tried to control it all. And now Earth was waiting for answers. The crew was scattered around the ship, each lost in their own thoughts. Mia Thompson, the team's technician, sat at the communications console, her fingers moving quickly across the keys as she monitored the data from the alien ship they'd left behind. She was calm on the outside, but Jack could see the tension in her posture. They had saved the galaxy, but the galaxy wasn't a place that would let them rest. "Commander," Mia called, her voice breaking through Jack's thoughts. "I've managed to send the initial data back to Earth. They're preparing for our arrival. General Haynes wants a full debrief as soon as we land." Jack nodded, trying to steady his thoughts. "Good. Make sure they know everything we've found. They need to understand the stakes." Mia glanced at him, her face serious. "Do you think they'll understand, the seed, the architects?" Jack leaned back in his chair, looking out at the stars. "I don't know, it's hard to comprehend, but we've got to try. The rest of the galaxy is watching, Mia. The architects. They wanted us to be the ones to restore balance, but I don't know what that even means. I don't think anyone does." Mia remained silent, her fingers still typing. Jack could see she was trying to process it all just like him. They had won, yes, but the battle was far from over. The true fight was just beginning. When they arrived at Earth's orbital station, the magnitude of their mission finally hit home. The station was abuzz with activity, the sleek ships of Earth's fleet moving in perfect formation. It was a symbol of Earth's resilience and strength. They had survived, but they had also been forever changed by what they had encountered. As the Endurance docked, Jack's crew stepped out, greeted by a group of high-ranking officers and scientists. General Haynes was waiting for them, his stern face softening as he approached Jack. "Commander Carter," Haynes said, shaking Jack's hand. "It's good to see you back. You've done something no one else thought possible. You've kept humanity's future safe." Jack nodded, but there was no pride in his eyes. "We're not out of danger yet. We've uncovered something huge, something the galaxy's been hiding for eons. The seed is only the beginning." Haynes didn't flinch. He knew this wasn't going to be easy. "We've already briefed Earth's top scientists and military. They're preparing for whatever comes next. But you're right, we don't know what kind of forces we're dealing with." The two walked toward the central briefing room, the sound of footsteps echoing through the sterile halls. Jack couldn't help but think of everything they had gone through. The fight to stop the darkness, the challenges of understanding the alien technology, the weight of the unknown that was still ahead of them. Inside the briefing room, Jack's team sat at a large table, their faces weary but filled with determination. Jack took his seat at the head of the table, looking around at the crew who had fought beside him. "Everyone waiting for answers," Jack said. "But none of us really know what comes next. We stopped the darkness from consuming the seed, but it's clear we've only scratched the surface. The architects didn't just create the seed, they created life. And they warned us about the chaos that could come if it was corrupted. We have to make sure that doesn't happen." Mia spoke up, her voice steady. "The seed's energy is something beyond anything we've seen before. It's powerful, but it's also fragile. If we don't understand it, it could destroy everything." "We've sent all the data back to Earth," Lieutenant Dan Foster added. "We've got the best scientists working on it, but they're going to need time to figure it out. We need to prepare for the worst." Jack met their eyes, knowing they were all thinking the same thing. "We've made it this far and we've proven humanity's strength, but now we need to be ready. The galaxy won't just stand by and watch us. There are factions out there that will try to take the seed to control it for themselves. We have to protect it, and we have to protect Earth." The room fell into a heavy silence as everyone took in Jack's words. They were on the precipice of something monumental. The galaxy was no longer just a distant dream. It was real, and it was full of dangers that humanity hadn't even begun to understand. Haynes finally spoke, his voice low but filled with purpose. "We'll make sure Earth is ready, but we're not doing this alone. The CHR have already pledged their support. We have allies and we'll need them. But you're right, Commander. The road ahead is uncertain. But if anyone can lead humanity into the future, it's you." Jack nodded, but a deep sense of responsibility weighed on him. The victory they had won felt incomplete. The seed had been restored, but there were still too many questions, and too many dangers. "We'll do what we have to," Jack said, his voice resolute. "But we need to stay vigilant. Humanity's place in the galaxy is just beginning, and no matter what, we're going to fight for it." As he looked around at his team, Jack saw the same resolve in their eyes. They had fought for their survival. Now they would fight for their future. The galaxy had shown them its dangers. Now it would see humanity's strength.